what happened to my daughter. I had a totally... All right, you guys voted, and one of the things that people want to hear more about is my daughter's health. So when I was pregnant with her, I contracted a virus called CMV, cytomegalovirus. It's actually CMV Awareness Month, so this is the perfect time to talk about this. It is a virus that to you or me is just a cold-like virus with mild symptoms, or to a healthy child. But if you catch it for the first time while you're pregnant, it can attack the baby's brain and mess with their development, which is exactly what happened to my daughter. I had a totally normal pregnancy. I had no idea anything was wrong with her. I was 18, healthy. I took care of myself. I was in labor for 4 hours. I had her. She was perfect, or so I thought, but her cry sounded like a baby kitten, and she was covered in petechiae. So they sent her to another hospital, to the NICU, which is where they ran the testing, and they found an enlarged liver and spleen, a small brain, calcium deposits on her brain, and eventually the CMV, which has caused all of her health issues. So the day she was born, like I said, my labor was 4 hours. It was super fast. I was really young. My daughter's dad wasn't there, but I did have a good support system. I had her without an epidural. Things went really, really quick. After she was born, the nurse said she was going to take her for some testing, and I had no idea anything was wrong. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, eating Little Caesars, talking to my family, showing off my new baby. I was super happy. A little bit later, she came in and said they were going to run some more testing because her blood platelets were low, and they were going to keep her in the nursery for the night, and that's when I kind of started to realize something was wrong. So I sat down there with her all night at about 6 a.m. At that point, I'd only gotten about an hour of sleep. Her pediatrician, our family doctor, came in and said they were going to transfer her because they'd rather be safe than sorry, and they weren't sure exactly what was going on. So I rode in the ambulance with her. We went to the NICU. When I got there, a swarm of doctors surrounded her, and I just lost it. I was like hysterically sobbing in the hallway in front of her NICU. I'll never forget the first doctor that told me something was seriously wrong. She was short. She had blonde hair. Her name was Dr. Collins. She had big old fake boobies. She was super pretty. And she came up to me and she said, "Chelsea, something is very wrong. Your baby girl is very sick, but we're going to do everything that we can to try and save her." And that's when it hit me like a kick to the gut. They said she was going to be life flighted to the hospital that we're at right now, actually, for a liver transplant. They were waiting on some more blood work to come back, and they were going to get that ball rolling. My family started showing up. I called her dad, and I'm like, "Listen, you really need to come see her. We don't know if she's going to make it." And things just were really chaotic. I ended up fainting in her NICU room at like 24 hours postpartum because I hadn't eaten or drank anything and was super weak. I ended up having to go through ER, and that's when her dad got there to see her. So I pulled my IV out and pulled my catheter out and walked my happy ass over to the NICU so that I could let her dad in. So they kept telling me that I needed to go home and get some rest, and I was adamant that I was not leaving this hospital without my baby. I wasn't going anywhere. If she was here, I was here. And I brought my pillow and blanket in, and I tried to fall asleep in the waiting room, and they told me that I couldn't do that. And they got a social worker, and they ended up getting me a hospital room on the 3rd floor, which was called a family room. It was like a tiny little hotel room with a mini fridge and a bathroom, which was perfect to me because I was right there next to her. I was pumping and taking my milk up to the NICU. I was cool with that. Around day 3 of her NICU stay, this doctor came in. He was tall, handsome, gray hair, older man. His name was Dr. Moline. And I have never, still to this day, met another doctor like him. He said, "Chelsea, I'm almost positive, I would bet my medical license on it, that your daughter has CMV. We're going to go ahead and start treatment if that's okay with you, because that's the only thing we can do right now until we get that test back. And we want to do what we can to try and save your little girl." And I trusted him. I knew this man knew what he was talking about. He was so confident. We got the test back a couple days later. He sat me down and he said, "Look, your daughter's never going to walk. She's never going to talk. She might not even smile. She may be in a vegetative state her entire life. I know this is scary, and I know you're young, but you take this baby home, and you love her with everything you have, and everything will be just fine." And in that moment, I knew she was meant to be mine. I had a caseworker come in and try to talk me into putting her up for adoption and belittling me, saying I can't do this. I don't have the money to take care of a special needs child. I don't have the support. And I told her if she comes in my room one more time, I'm going to file harassment charges. I stayed every single day in the hospital for my daughter's NICU stay. I learned how to take all of her leads on and off. I learned all of her medications and how to do all of her care, and I was still terrified to take her home. Those days were such a blur. It was like walking down this long, dark tunnel with no light at the end. When it came time for discharge, it was about 4 weeks after she was born. And like I said, I was terrified to take her home. I argued with them. I did not think she was ready to come home yet. I was petrified. And they reassured me that in his 20-some years of doing NICU care, that I was one of the only moms that had ever learned her child's care completely, and that mothers like me are not the ones they were afraid to send their child home with. I literally ate, slept, showered. I never left that hospital the entire time she was in there. She did really good for about the first year of life. She didn't hit her milestones, but I really wasn't too concerned until her first birthday. And that was when I lost it. I will never forget. I fell into a puddle on my living room floor, hysterically sobbing, because I had to accept at that point that something was seriously wrong, and it wasn't just going to get better. I think all special needs parents have that moment where it's just like, it's a kick to the gut, and you have to accept it. Like, it is what it is. This is what's happening. So my daughter has microcephaly. She has epilepsy, which are all caused by the CMV. She has cerebral calcifications. She is a spastic quadriplegic, meaning her trunk is loose, her limbs are tight. She can't hold her head up. She doesn't walk. She doesn't talk. But cognitively, she is all there. She is very smart. She makes yes and no faces. She knows what she wants. She picks out her own outfits. She picks out her own room decorations, like you name it. She stayed really, really healthy and did really, really good until around age 5. And that's when things kind of started to take a turn. She was getting recurrent pneumonia and was in the hospital a lot. And then her hips came out of place, and it didn't bother her at first, but now she's in a lot of pain from that. So we've been kind of seeing a decline for the past 4 years. This past year, it's rapidly increased. She is having dysautonomia. I can't say the word. But anyways, half of her face turns bright red and swollen, and half of her body does. And it's just her brain and her heart aren't regulating. So her brain and her heart aren't regulating correctly. All of her organs are kind of starting to be overworked. She's in pain a lot of the time. She's been seizing back to back for the past month and a half. And things are just getting really hard on her and on us. And it's the hardest thing in the entire world to watch your kid go through and feel so helpless. My husband and I have had some really hard talks lately as well with our family, and we have always said that we want her quality of life to come before her quantity, and it's time to put our money where our mouth is. So during this hospital stay today, I got the paperwork started for a DNR, a do not resuscitate, which basically means that I can make that call when the time comes, but we don't want her to be resuscitated if her quality of life isn't going to be improved or maintained. I made a promise to her that I would fight for as hard as I could for as long as she wanted to, and that I would always put her comfort level first and her best interest first. I have also had to have some really hard talks with her and explain to her what's happening, and we don't know how much of it she understands, but I know she understands some of it. I told her that we're going to be okay, and that if she's done fighting, that's okay. We just want her to be comfortable, that she's going to be pain-free, and she'll get to see her dad again. And the next time we see her, she's going to be able to run and jump in our arms and give us a huge hug. That we don't want her to keep fighting just for us, and that we're going to take care of each other, and we're always going to love her, and that's never going to change. And we'll get through this. That I will fight by her side for as long as she does. But when she's ready, it's okay to go. That she's going to be in heaven, and she's going to be happy and pain-free for the first time in her entire life. She is my best friend, and I honestly cannot picture life without her. I don't know what's going to happen, but we just got to take it day by day and see what happens. Do you guys have any idea how hard it is to talk about this right now with her just sleeping next to me? But I've always been honest and raw and vulnerable about my journey with her, because if it can help just one person, then it's all worth it. I'm seriously not somebody who ever cries, especially not on camera. I don't even cry in front of people. I maybe cry once a year, so this is kind of crazy for me to be breaking down right now. But like I said, we did get the DNR started today. We are getting hospice involved, and this is just for her comfort measures. This doesn't mean anything's going to happen anytime soon. It could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now. We really have no idea. It's not in our hands. There's no kind of manual for this. We have no idea what to expect. We do know that she is still fighting. She is still happy, and she's starting to come back to her normal self. So hopefully we get some answers and she can get back to her baseline. We just want to see her happy and smiling and playing with her brother again. What happened to my daughter? I had a totally